In 1992, Greg Ehrenberg was teaching a Bible study in his church, but he also had another life no one knew about. One night, he visited a strip club and struck up a conversation with one of the girls. Her name was Stephanie, and to his surprise, she agreed to give him her phone number. Unlike most women in that profession, Stephanie didn't enter the business to pay for a drug habit.
I had wanted to for years because I knew a girl, I guess 3 years before, who started working and made $300 a day. I wanted that. And so I had purposed my heart when I was 15 years old that I was going to do that.
Almost immediately, Greg and Stephanie started living together, but the relationship was rocky from the beginning. It quickly became obvious to her that she wasn't the only girl Greg had eyes for. For 3 miserable years, they lived this way. Stephanie making a living entertaining the lust of men at a club, and Greg indulging in an ever-increasing level of corrupt behavior. The pair finally got married in 1995, and Stephanie quit her job at the club. Greg continued his secret lifestyle, yet, at the same time, he was growing weary of the emptiness of it. Eventually, he started going to psychologists and attending 12-step meetings in the hopes of overcoming his addictive behavior.
So I had been involved in all the secular psychology. I had been involved in that for 8 or 9 years. I had gone to SLAA, which is Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. I had done that. I was going to those meetings. I was miserable. There was no freedom in it at all, and I would have had to stay in that my whole life, in order to have any kind of freedom in that system.
This was the pattern of their lives for the first 13 years of marriage. Nothing helped Greg find the freedom he desired, and he continued indulging in his sin. As for Stephanie, she had long since given up on Greg being faithful to her and decided it would be easier for her to just ignore the reality of his sin. But everything changed in 2008 when a mysterious package arrived in the mail. One of Greg's lovers had sent Stephanie a packet of compromising pictures as evidence of their affair. Stephanie still didn't want to face the facts of his sin until one of her friends intervened.
I had a best friend who dragged me outside of her office, who said, "God sent you a package with pictures. It's time to look at this now." So I'm glad I had her in my life too.
Stephanie could no longer avoid the truth. She knew she had to deal with it and begin looking into help for sexual addiction. She discovered several secular treatment centers and also an obscure Christian facility called Pure Life Ministries, represented by a website that was difficult to get to.
For me, I had to go to a link and then 3 clicks. 3 links to get to Pure Life every time. I couldn't just find it. But I remembered that one with the hope, and that's the one I wanted him to go to. But, there were others. There were secular ones. There were 21-day programs in the woods, and there were 6-month programs where he could still smoke. And, I knew he wanted one of those. But I knew there was that one with the hope, and I wanted him to go there.
Stephanie tried to talk to Greg about getting some real help for his addiction.
I asked him, "Are you even a Christian?" And of course he would say yes. And I would ask him, "Would you please go to a live-in program? We've tried counselors of this kind and that kind and the other kind, and would you please go to a live-in program?" And he said, "Absolutely not."
Stephanie was determined, though, and made it clear that their marriage was done if he didn't get help. So, Greg half-heartedly began looking into the possibility of a treatment facility.
So I was looking at the secular places, and this place out in Arizona looked really good. The only problem, $30,000.
Greg agreed to go to Pure Life Ministries because it was the only place he could afford. In September 2008, he showed up with a 2-pack-a-day cigarette habit and no faith whatsoever in God. But he had only been there for a few days when an incident occurred that the Lord used to begin to soften his hard heart. It happened as he was sitting outside the student center when his counselor walked by.
I must have looked really distraught because he was like, "Hey, come on up to my office." He said, "What's going on? What's wrong?" And I said, "Well, I'm having a hard time with this smoking thing." So he said, "Let me pray for you." And I was like, "Okay, whatever." He prayed for me. I can't remember what exactly he prayed, But I know from that day forward, I never desired another cigarette.
This was the first time Greg had ever seen such a direct answer to prayer. It amazed him, but he was so buried in darkness, it would take 6 more months living in that godly atmosphere before he would really have his breakthrough. For some time, he had been pleading with the Lord to set him free of lustful thoughts. Then one day, he had an unexpected revelation.
In the back of this van, driving home from work, the Lord showed me. He showed me that I wanted it. And that I was crushed when I saw that, when I saw the reality of my sin and that I wanted it. I saw him as the most beautiful thing. And what he did for me, for us, was the most beautiful thing. And so everything they had been talking about at Pure Life, where, you got to see the cross, you got to have a sight of the cross. It was that day that I got it. God opened my eyes to the reality of himself and the reality of me.
This was the breakthrough Greg had been needing. Now, the Lord was able to reveal himself in a brand new way.
We had a half-day prayer on importunity. Ask, seek, knock, and the importunity of that asking, the relentless asking. And when we were wrapping up that half day of prayer, I opened my mouth and prayed from my heart. I remember just a very real presence of the Holy Spirit, almost to where I felt like I couldn't breathe. And someone who was behind me later on told me that he felt like there was just this bubble around me or something. Something happened that day. I'd never experienced a place where we sang like that, where, if you've never been to Pure Life Chapel and heard the singing of 60 to 70 needy guys, there's nothing like it. The presence of the Lord was so strong in that place that you can't, I couldn't ignore it. And I saw it lived out. So there was a reality of God. There wasn't this same old thoughts that I had had in the past about, these people talk a good talk, but there's nothing real. That there was something real there. God has the power to heal something that we completely destroyed. And he healed it in such a complete way that, we are in awe.
Greg would be graduating the program soon, but the challenges wouldn't stop there. He and Stephanie would have to develop a whole new way of living.
Even before he came home, my counselor told me, make your home a sanctuary. Get rid of the junk. Get rid of the whatever causes you to turn away from Jesus, or to focus more of your time and energy on this thing instead of Jesus.
If the Lord hadn't grabbed me out of where I was and stuck me at Pure Life Ministries, I would be dead. Either by my own hand, or I would have ended up in prison, because that's where I was headed. There's absolutely no way to outwardly express how thankful we are to Jesus for what he's done for us. He is above every name. There is nothing that he doesn't know. There's nothing he can't overcome. There's nothing he can't do. And I can say from the bottom of my heart that I love Jesus. We're thankful for Pure Life Ministries, that they're available to God. And they don't chase after some cause. they just chase after Jesus and they seek Jesus. And that's the only reason why we're here today. That's the only reason why we're alive. It's the only reason why we have hope and joy and happiness and life in everything. Is because there were people that were willing to say yes to Jesus. That's all.
Pure Life Ministries pointed us to Jesus better than anybody else we'd ever met.